Welcome back to Pathfinder Kingmaker. Last time I left it, we had defeated some bandits at Oleg's trading post, and we had decided to level up and sell some of our loot before we fought the bandit counterattack, which Oleg tells us is imminent. So we're going to do that now. Let's level up all of our characters, and this will give us a chance to see how the game's built the NPCs that it's given us as party members, and what we can do with them to customize them to our liking. So let's start with me. So this is Joseph the Paladin, for anyone who doesn't remember. Let's level him up. Right, so we get a whole bunch of choices to make in this process. The first one is which class we're going to level up in. We could multi-class, we could start taking levels in a different class. For some classes that's a good idea and can make for a really powerful build, but for Paladin not so much. It's better to stick with Paladin, I think, unless we have like a very specific idea we're trying to realize, like mixing in a level of sorcerer or something, which is a charisma based casting class, and trying to snag some abilities that complement our Paladinness. But I'm not being nearly that tricky at the moment. I'm just going to level up as a Paladin. So that tells us what we're going to look like if we level up as a Paladin this time. It tells us we're going to get some extra abilities at this next Paladin level. So Divine Grace is the one that is most important, I think, here. It lets us add our charisma bonus to all of our saving throws. If you remember in the first session, when I was buying stats, buying abilities, I put quite a few points into charisma, even though our character's a melee fighter for the most part. And this is part of why. It's because charisma actually contributes significantly to a paladin's defenses. And offenses too, so Smite Evil, which we already have, is charisma based in some ways too. So charisma, important for a paladin. Here's one of the nice things that is keyed off it that we're getting at second level. We're also getting Lay on Hands, which is a sort of minor healing ability that lets us restore some hit points to ourselves or to someone else. The nice thing about it is that it's a swift action, I believe, meaning that in combat we can use it without giving up much or any combat effectiveness. So if we get a bit low on health, we can heal ourselves. No other character needs to burn actions to do that, and we can do it quickly and keep on fighting while we do it. So that's a nice little thing to have as well. So over here it shows us our progress through the Paladin level progression. So we're here at second level. We've got our Divine Grace, which I just talked about, and we've got Lay on Hands. Alright, so next up, we can't do anything with this yet. We don't get another ability point until 4th level, so all we've got to do on this screen, it looks like, is spend some skill points. So with the skill points, I want to keep putting points into Persuasion, because I'm thinking he'll be our main kind of social character, negotiator, that sort of thing. So let's keep pumping up his Persuasion, which, remember, is keyed off charisma as well, so that's another reason charisma is important for this character. We're going to also keep up our knowledge religion, or our religious lore skill. I think it's good to have, decent scores across the party in all of these, because they seem to crop in dialogue a fair bit, and having someone who knows something about all of them seems to be a useful thing. So he's our law religion guy, so we'll pump another point into that. And as for the last point, I'm not actually quite sure why we've got 3 points, to be honest. I thought we were getting 2 skill points per level, that being 2 for our class, -1 for our intelligence, and then +1 for being human, which is 2. But we seem to be getting 3, and that 2 is what we got at first level, but we seem to be getting 3 now as we level up to second level. So okay, I'm sure, let's have an extra skill point. I'm going to put that in Perception, just because perception is sort of such an often used and important skill. The more characters that have good perception skills, the more likely the party as a whole is to notice things that we really should notice, like traps or other interesting features of the environment, like hidden doors or that sort of thing. So even though it doesn't leave him with a fantastic score, we'll just start leveling that up. It's as good a use of our extra bonus skill point as any, I think. So there we go. Skill points assigned. Now we get what looks like a summary screen. Yep, so this tells us that we've got Lay on Hands, we've got Divine Grace, and we've spent some skill points, and that's it. Alright. Hit points, I don't think... So we didn't get to roll hit points, which makes me think we probably get a fixed amount based on the class's hit die and our constitution modifier. So for paladins, as one of the kind of warrior type classes, our hit die is a d10. So rather than like randomly getting 1 to 10 hit points and then adding our constitution, my guess is that the game's probably giving us 6, which is sort of average rounded up, added, and then adding our constitution. So that's one of the optional rules in the pen and paper Pathfinder rule set. It just takes it takes all of the randomness out of hit point rolls, and as good as a high hit point roll is, a low hit point roll is kind of even worse than a high hit point roll is like really good, because you could end up with far too few hit points to stand up to the level of enemy you end up facing as you progress. So having not enough hit points is really terrible, and you can avoid that by having this average plus your con modifier rather than a roll plus your con modifier. So if that's what they're doing, fantastic, that makes a lot of sense. And it also takes out one of the points at which you might save scum in this game. So going all the way through this leveling up process, rolling a 1 for hit points and deciding you'd rather get more hit points than that. So reloading your save game and going through all of this again is just tedious. There's nothing enjoyable about that. So yeah, taking out that frustration of random hit points and the temptation to save scum your way through that by giving you a fixed amount, I think is a very good decision in this adaptation of the rules. So great. Let's finish with Jusis. There we go, 2nd level paladin. Let's move on to Valerie and level her up now. So she's a fighter. She is a tower shield specialist. That maybe isn't the way I would have built a fighter, but I guess the game makers are trying to give you a very solid defensive character to kind of hold your front line if you happen to have made for yourself a more kind of squishy character. They think giving you Valerie will mean you're not entirely bereft of tanky characters, so building her as a sort of solid defensive character makes some sense. So we're going to level her up as a fighter as well. That is going to give us a bonus combat feat, which is a sort of main feature of the fighter class, is they get lots and lots of bonus combat feats all the way through their progression, as well as the feats that every character gets as part of the level progression. So in effect, as a fighter, you get a feat every level, which lets you really kind of tailor your combat abilities to be sort of whatever you want. Lots of options. With her, let's press on through this process. With her, we're going to take that sort of defensive focus that the game developers have given her, obviously, and just run with that and see if we can make her sort of a really effective tank. So, first of all, skill points. Here, it's, I think, sort of less important where we put these. She's never going to be a fantastic kind of skill-based character. She's got an intelligence penalty. She doesn't get a whole lot of skill points. She's more of a melee combat character. That's where she shines than a kind of skill use character. But still, we don't want to waste these. So let's spend them in a way that's eventually going to be pretty cool. Now, it might look a bit weird, but I'm going to do this and put one of her points in persuasion. And I'm going to do this and put one of her points in use magic device. How come? Well, the devs have given her, the game makers, whatever, have given her reasonably high charisma for a fighter type character for backstory reasons. So if you remember, she was a failed paladin. She washed out of paladin college, and for whatever reason that was, she still has the charisma score that you'd expect a paladin would have needed if they were going to succeed. So yeah, she's got a good charisma, and because skill points for fighters, tend not to be all that useful or flavorful, we're going to put them in charisma-based skills that are eventually going to let her do cool things. So in the case of use magic device, once we've leveled this up quite a bit, that +2 charisma is really going to help with making the difficulty checks to use scrolls, wands, maybe other more exotic items that she couldn't otherwise use, and that'll be really handy. That will be cool. And for persuasion, you'll see why I've picked a point in persuasion as we go to this next screen. We've got one more skill point to spend. Let's drop that on perception as well, and then move on. So here, you'll see we've got our first bonus feat choice. On the left, we've got a list of the feats we can choose from, and the game helpfully tells us which ones they don't recommend and which ones they do recommend. So again, they were recommending weapon focus. I talked about why I think that's not a great choice when I was building my own character in the first of these videos. What we're going to do here is, for our first bonus feat, we're going to pick shield focus. Now, it's a pretty unexciting one, to be honest. What it does is increase the armor class bonus granted by any shield by a further 1 point. Now, because she's a tower shield specialist, she's always going to have that tower shield equipped. Taking that off sort of takes away the whole focus of her class. So picking that means the thing we're always going to be using anyway is a little bit more effective than it would otherwise be. And it helps, with that tankiness that she's built around. So she's a bit harder to hit. Fantastic. Moving forward, though, what we'd like to eventually start picking up are feats like this. So there's a whole line of feats that let you intimidate enemies in combat. So intimidating prowess is one of them. It lets you add your strength as well as your charisma modifier to your persuasion skill when you use that skill to intimidate enemies. So that would be a nice thing to grab for her down the line. There's also things like dazzling display, and this lets us do a sort of area of effect, sort of multi-target action that can demoralize multiple foes by sort of whirling our sword around, apparently, and making an intimidate check. Now, demoralized, the game doesn't helpfully tell you here, but what demoralizing does is apply a condition to enemies that I believe subtracts 2 from their rolls to hit and maybe their armor class. I don't really remember, and I couldn't dig it out looking around earlier in the menu here. But demoralizing multiple foes is a really nice debuff to apply, and it will make our sort of investment in persuasion actually pay off in combat. So if we can eventually sort of build up to that, that would be fantastic. It would give her a sort of extra thing she can do, as well as just hit things and not be hit by things. So there we go. There's also things like this. So once we've got 6 ranks in persuasion and power attack, which is another feat we'll try to pick up at some point, then intimidating the opponent you're actually fighting becomes a free action whenever you hit them with power attack switched on. So that's nice, a free action to give your opponent a penalty to their important sort of statistics and derived statistics. That'll be a nice thing to pick up eventually too. We've got lots of feats as a fighter, and so using some of these feat choices to pick up things that synergize well with our high charisma score for a fighter is an interesting way, I think, to build out Valerie. She's been built as a kind of primarily defensive, kind of tanky character, but if we pick up these kind of intimidation line feats, that'll let her also debuff enemies, which is a good thing. So, for now we're picking shield focus just to make our always equipped tower shield that little bit more effective. And that's our decision made for feats, and that's the leveling up process done for Valerie for this level. So, she also picked up a special ability as a tower shield specialist, which is called Burst Barrier, and which lets her add her... No, it just lets her get a +1 bonus on reflex saves when she's got that tower shield equipped. And that bonus goes up as her level goes up, so that'll be nice. Reflex saves are pretty bad for fighters, it's not one of their good ones. She's got a fairly low... well, she's got an okay dex. But her reflex save is never going to be fantastic, and this is going to boost it a bit, so nice to have. So there we go, that's Valerie leveled up to level 2.
We should gather our strength.
Let's move on to Lindsay. Personally, I think I find the game actually really fun. I think, as with the pen and paper role-playing games, a lot of the enjoyment, I think, comes from kind of planning out your character, building your character in some, clever or fun way. And this game, as it's sort of presented here, gives you lots of options, and I think it's the cool, fun part of the game. So let's go through and do that for Lindsay now. So we're going to go up as Bard again. I'm not planning on multi-classing any of these characters, I don't think. So at second level as a Bard, we get a Bard talent, which is a sort of special little trick of some. It's a feature that Bards sort of share with rogues. It looks like they pick talents from the same list. And we get Well Versed, which is a sort of defensive feature which makes us sort of more resistant to singy, talky, soundy type attacks. So it's a flavourful thing for a bard, I guess. Those are probably going to be not the most common kind of attacks that we suffer, but it's nice to have a big bonus to them when we do run into them. So, well versed, we'll take it. Alright, let's go and pick skill points. Now here, we actually need to put a bit of thought into what goes where. So, Lindsay, as a halfling, and as a fairly dexterous halfling at that, can end up with a really nice stealth score. If we just drop, so at the moment it's +4, ignore that -3 for encumbrance, and it's actually +7. But if we drop just 1 point into stealth, then our score jumps up quite a bit, because we get that 1 point, obviously, but we also activate the class skill bonus. So now that we've put a point into a class skill, we get that extra +3 on top of that 1 point, and all of a sudden our stealth score is pretty darn good. So once we're not encumbered and we've sold off our loot, then we'll have a stealth score of +11 by the look of it, and that's quite respectable. So spending just 1 point there boosts the stealth by quite a lot, so that's nice. We're also going to drop a point on trickery. So this is the skill that covers opening locks and disarming traps. The reason we're keeping this as high as we can get it is because failing those checks can be bad. Failing an open lock check, I think, depending on how they've implemented the pen and paper rules, might mean we just can't open that lock. So if we fail it badly enough, we can jam the lock and that's it. Game over. Well, for the lock picking, at least game over. With disable device, if we fail those checks badly enough, we can accidentally set off the trap we're trying to disarm. That's bad too, so keeping this maxed is a good idea. Ditto with stealth. So being discovered while sneaking around is a bad thing. So we want to keep this as high as we can, so that her chance to avoid detection is as good as it can be. So that's pretty simple. And with the next point we've got, we're going to put that into perception. So again, it's a class skill, but she doesn't even have a rank in it. So if we drop 1 point in, we get that point. We get our +3 class skill bonus. As a halfling, she's got a +2 already. That's nice to have. Although she doesn't have a great wisdom, which is the ability that this skill is keyed off of, she still ends up with a decent check with just that 1 point in. But we're going to put 2 points in there because failing to notice a trap means we don't even get a chance to disarm it. So we want our perception, our stealth and our trickery to all be as sort of high as we can have them. And that way hopefully we notice traps while we're sneaking around scouting and we successfully disarm them. That's the idea here. Alright, now we've got one... no, we don't. We've spent all of our skill points. Fantastic. Moving on. Here we need to choose a bard talent. So it shows us the available ones here, it shows us the recommended ones, so the game seems to really like weapon focus for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why they think it's so great, but I guess it's hard to go wrong. It's a straight +1 with no downsides, so I could see why it would be a recommendation, I guess, but it's certainly not the best choice. For Lindsay, intimidating prowess they don't recommend, so adding our strength modifier, which is negative, to our charisma modifier when we make a persuasion check would obviously be terrible. So it's good that the game points out the bad choices as well. Here are a whole bunch more bard talents that we've got to look forward to down the line. So these all look kind of cool. We can get talents that make us almost immune to area effect damage, so if we make a reflex save against a big fireball for instance, then we take no damage at all. That's a cool thing to have, but those are all down the line. For now we've got to pick something from here, and I'm going to look a bit strange picking combat trick, but I'm going to pick combat trick here because what that lets us do is select from a list of feats, combat feats, that includes this one, improved initiative. And for Lindsay, for a bard, that's actually really nice. So a lot of the bard's abilities are ones that buff the rest of the party, so provide advantages to the party. And it's really nice if she can get those off early in combat, before anything else happens, before those other party members take their actions, because then the other party members have the advantage of the buff by the time it's their turn to act. And likewise, some of her abilities are important to get off early because they debuff enemies, or they somehow disadvantage enemies. So some of her spells are going to be like this eventually, and getting those spells off before the enemies can act is really important too. So they have to then act under the sort of impairment of those disadvantaging spells. If Lindsay can get her abilities off quick, that's really good. So we're going to take combat trick as our bard talent, and we're going to use that to pick improved initiative, which is going to help her go first in combat and sort of secure an advantage for us more often than not, we hope. So there we go. Next up, we have to pick a spell. Now, bards don't have to prepare their spells every day from a spell book like wizards do. Bards can just cast any of the spells they know, albeit a limited number of times a day. So we really need to pick carefully. We're only ever going to have a limited number of spells to choose from at each spell level, and it's important we pick ones that are not only useful now, but that are going to stay useful in future, because we'll have the same level 1 spells, throughout our progression. And it'd be a shame if we pick spells that are only really useful early on in the game at level 1, because we'd end up wasting a spell level basically. So for example, spells like this one are nice early, can be really powerful early when you're fighting creatures that have 1 hit die or 2 hit die, so weak creatures. You can take out several of those with this spell and basically insta-win encounters if the targets fail their save. But later, when you're fighting creatures with far more than 4 hit dice, this spell becomes much less useful, to the point of being useless. And that's a shame, because we're stuck with it. So although this would be nice to have now, it's not going to remain useful for very long even. It won't be long before we're facing 4 hit dice creatures. And then the usefulness will drop off very steeply. So it'll be a kind of wasted slot in the long run. We're not going to take it. What we're going to take is a spell that I think is going to be useful pretty much forever. So Grease. What does Grease do? Grease creates an area of effect that forces creatures in it to make a reflex save or fall over. Now this is awesome. This is really good. It's really good because it lets us do a bit of battlefield control. It lets us, say, fill a doorway as a choke point with this area of effect slipperiness, and then enemies that come at us through that doorway might start sort of falling over and piling up in that doorway, and only a few hopefully make it through, which we can deal with as they do. And it kind of lets us control sort of how many get to us and how quickly, say. That would be one example. Another thing you could do is set up your frontliners to hold a sort of line and then drop this on the enemies that come to them, and then the enemies are sort of stuck, engaged with your frontliners on this area of effect grease stuff, and each round that they're stuck there they have to make a save or fall over. If they fall over, then they're much more vulnerable to attack. To get up, they have to provoke an attack of opportunity, so that's a free attack for all the characters that can reach them. So it really gives the advantage to the melee characters if you can drop this in the right spot. So it gives us lots of flexibility, lots of potential for sort of tilting the battlefield in our favour, and it's going to stay useful forever. So a reflex save negates the effect for that round. The later things we face might have better reflex saves in some cases than the earlier things, but still forcing a reflex save or fall prone is going to be useful for a lot longer and against a lot more different types of creatures than, say, sleep is going to be. It's limited to affecting 4 hit dice of creatures. So pretty soon that'll be obsolete. Hopefully this will stay relevant for much longer. So there we go, that's why we're picking Grease. And with that, here's our little summary. We're done with Lindsay. Fantastic. Alright, just a Miri to go now, and then we'll sell some of the stuff that's encumbering us and start getting ready for this bandit attack. So let's level up Amiri. Amiri's a barbarian. We're going to stick with barbarian, and this tells us that if we do that, we're going to get a rage power, a nice class feature called uncanny dodge, and some skill points in these skills. So here we go. Level up as a barbarian. She's got 4 skill points to distribute, and we're going to put one of those on knowledge nature, or nature lore as they call it in this game. Remember, this was the skill that hunting in that camping screen was based off of. So the better her lore nature, the more effective a hunter she is, the more likely she is to succeed at getting enough food to feed the party for that camping session. Maybe the more quickly she'll do it as well. I'm not sure exactly how this mechanic works, but higher lore nature means better hunting, and that's important in that camping screen, so we're going to keep her lore nature maxed out. The other thing we're going to spend some skill points on is perception. So I said before, it's an important, it's often checked. The more party members that have a good perception, the better, so let's keep hers pumped up there. We're also going to put some points on athletic mobility. So athletics, just because it seems to me that this has come up in the book page turning choose your own adventure style bit of the game at least once, maybe a couple of times, and having a character who's good at it is going to be handy. So she's really the only character who's ever going to be much good at this, at least of the ones we've got at the moment, so let's pump that up. And we're going to put another point in mobility too. So Amiri is going to be, of the melee characters that we have, the one that's most likely to be sort of moving around on the battlefield. So she's only going to be wearing medium armor. As a barbarian, she's already got an improved movement rate compared to the other characters. That means she's going to be our most mobile fighter type. And having mobility as a skill means that moving around on the battlefield is less likely to get her smacked as she does it. So she can hopefully move around without getting attacks of opportunity, and that's great. That gives us some flexibility in combat. We can run her around, say, the frontline melee type enemies, and sick her on a back row type spellcaster or something like that, or some otherwise out of reach character if she's got that good movement rate and she's got mobility to help her could do it. So mobility, there we go. Next up, we get to pick a rage power. So here we've got a choice of like half a dozen or so at the start, and some of these are prerequisites for later, more powerful rage powers. Looking ahead at those might be one way to decide what you want here, or you can just look here and pick something that sounds cool. To me, this sounds really cool. So Animal Fury means that when Amiri is raging, as well as whacking things with her ginormous sword, actual name, she can bite them. It's an extra attack, and while it's not made at a full base attack bonus, it's made at a fairly significant penalty. Still, it's an extra attack. More actions in combat is a very good thing in this game, I think. So picking that means that when she's raging, she's got another chance to hit things and hurt them. It's also kind of cool to think of her chomping down on her enemies in combat in her rage. So there we go, Animal Fury, and we can move on from there. So here's our summary screen. Excuse me. We've got Uncanny Dodge, which lets us keep our dexterity bonus to armor class under conditions where we'd otherwise lose it. So under conditions where a character without this feature would lose it. Now, our dexterity bonus to armor class isn't huge, but still, we'll take it. Animal Fury, our rage power, great. And that's it for Amiri. So she's leveled up now.
When we start.
All of our party's leveled up now. The thing we want to do next is get rid of this, our party encumbrance. So we'll talk to Oleg and ask to see his goods, which will hopefully let us sell our collected trash and treasure. Alright, so this is the first vendor screen, or first shopkeeping screen that we've hit. Let's have a look at our options here. So over here we can sell off all the various things that we've picked up along the way, including all this sort of miscellaneous stuff down here. Let's have a look at what he has for sale. So he's got a magical light mace for sale for 2,400 gold, which is more than we'll be able to afford anytime soon, I think. But good to know it's there. Masterwork weapons of all varieties, and some armor. Alright. Oh, and some magical items at the bottom. So, excuse me. So he has a ring of protection, much like the ring that we got from Tartuccio at the start, which I don't know if we hung on to or not. This gives us a bonus to armor class. There's also a magical rod, which gives its wielder the ability to use the effect of a certain kind of metamagic feat a number of times per day. So it's sort of like having the feat temporarily. Interesting. And then there are some more things, including a bag of holding, which lets us carry more without it adding to our party encumbrance. So that could be a handy thing to pick up when we've got a spare 2,500 gold, which won't be for long. We can buy camping supplies. So for 5 gold, which seems fairly cheap, we can buy camping supplies. I guess this is really helpful if you have a party with no character that has nature lore. We're not in that unfortunate position, so we don't have to worry about that, I don't think. Unless there are areas where you can't hunt, which would be a reason to take camping supplies, I guess. We'll have to see about that. Why do I feel like I'm going to find that out the hard way and end up deep in some dungeon somewhere trying to make camp with no food? I sort of feel like that's going to happen. Alright, let's do some selling. So, see how easy to use this interface is. We're going to sell off our extra tower shield. If we just click it, it jumps into there. Okay, that's handy. We're going to sell off... Are we going to sell off our chain shirts? So a chain shirt would actually be better for Amiri than hide armor, is that right? So chain shirt is a +4 to armor class with a -3 armor check penalty and +4 max dex. Okay, so a chain shirt is actually better for Amiri than the hide armour that she's wearing. So we'll hang on to one of those. Actually, maybe it makes more... Well, we're going to sell that for sure. Makes more sense maybe to have a look at our
shouldn't brag about a big sword if they can't carry one.
Indeed, one shouldn't, Amiri. Words of wisdom. So, Amiri we decided would be better off in a chain shirt than hide armour, because she gets the same armour class with a slightly lower armour check penalty. So let's do that. Excellent. How about Lindsay? Lindsay is currently wearing leather armour. We could give her a chain shirt as well, and that would be much better. Excellent. Valerie is in this heavy banded mail. I don't think there's anything better than that for her. And I think I'm wearing scale mail, so it's a 5 armor class. I think the chain mail is actually better than that. Yeah. So it gives us a bigger armor check penalty. We don't care so much about that. It gives us a lower maximum dexterity bonus, but ours is 0 anyway. So the chain mail, is actually better for us than the scale mail we've got on, so we'll swap that out. There we go. So everyone's now got, I think, the best armor for their particular setup. How about weapons? So I'm using a plain old longsword, and if we have a look through here, we can see if we've got anything better than that. So just visually looking, how else do you look? Just looking at these rather than mousing over to see the stats, these look like just all plain daggers, some torches. So that's an exotic weapon, I think, which is why we can't use it. So I'm not seeing... a masterwork light mace. So one thing to keep in mind, even though this light mace does less damage than our longsword, it does a d6 rather than a d8, it does a different type of damage. So it does bludgeoning damage rather than slashing. It's a blunt weapon, it crushes things rather than a sort of edged weapon that slashes things. Some enemies are only going to be vulnerable to bludgeoning damage and not to slashing damage or to piercing damage, which is the other kind of damage that things like spears do. So, skeletons from memory, from playing the pen and paper version of this game, are a type of enemy that take much less damage from slashing and piercing weapons than from bludgeoning weapons. So hanging on to a decent bludgeoning weapon would be a good idea. So we'll do that. Is there anything better than the longsword for him? No, I don't think so. So we'll just hang on to that longsword. So here's an interesting choice. We've got a heavy mace that does a d8 damage and a light mace that does a d6. The light mace is a masterwork one, so it has a +1 to hit. So we've got like a 5% better chance to hit with this than with that. But with that one, we're going to do ever so slightly more damage on average. I think I'll take the better chance to hit over the ever so slightly more damage. So we'll hang on to the masterwork light mace. So I think that's it for weapons for Joseph. We've given him... he's got a longbow. There's a composite longbow up there. So because he's the character with the best strength... maybe... Yes, no, he is. With that penalty removed, he's at 18. With her penalty removed, she's at 16. Because he's got the best strength, even though he doesn't have a fantastic dexterity at the best of times, we might as well give him the longbow that lets him take advantage of the strength that he's got. We'll unequip that one, and we might give that to... We'll give that to Amiri because she's got the better... Oh no, they've got the same dexterity. Let's give that to Amiri anyway. So she's got a ranged weapon option. Let's give one of the short bows. These are all short bows. Yep. Let's give one of the short bows to Valerie. Again, just so she's got a ranged weapon option. It's always nice to make sure you've got ranged weapons for all of your party members. So if you need to just pelt something with projectiles, you can do it. great, so now Lindsay's got her crossbow. Do we want to let her keep using the crossbow or swap her to a short bow? If we swap her to a short bow, although I haven't seen ammo mattering, that would mean we're all using arrows. We only have to worry about keeping up with arrows rather than some of us using arrows and some bolts. Maybe they haven't implemented ammo at all, which would be a strange choice. But it looks like that's what they've done. We don't have any ammunition. No. We just magically create arrows. Alright. I think that's a bit rubbish. That's the first thing that I've hit with this game where I think that's actually rubbish. No ammunition strikes me as a silly thing to have done. First of all, I wonder if we can get magical ammunition. If there's no plain ammunition, is there going to be magical ammunition? And if there's... yeah. Okay. Well, we'll give her the short bow anyway. And we'll sell the light crossbow with the rest of the stuff we don't want. We better give her a melee weapon as well, just so she's got one. So as a bard, let's have a quick look at what she's proficient with. Bard proficiencies, there we go. Proficient with all simple weapons, which are things like clubs, daggers, spears, I think, staves. Very basic, sort of not very good weapons. As well as some better ones, the longsword, rapier, shortsword, and shortbow. Alright, so we've given her a shortbow. Let's see if we can give her a better weapon. Well, a better weapon than she's got would be any weapon at all. So of the weapons that we've got for her, she can use a dagger, she can use a club, she can use a longsword. She's not going to use any of these very effectively, to be honest, but it's a bad idea to leave her without a melee weapon at all. So let's just give her the longsword. There we go. Now she can also use shields, but we don't have one to give her, so that's a moot point. Alright, let's look at Amiri now. Oh, sorry, let's look at Valerie first, just to check. Right, so we could give her a bludgeoning weapon backup. Let's give her that heavy mace. Now she's got a bludgeoning weapon too. We can do the same with Lindsay. Now Lindsay's got a bludgeoning weapon she can use if she needs to. This is good, so we're covering some bases here. Ranged attacks, melee weapons of varying damage types. It's all looking good. So, what about Amiri? She's using a ginormous bastard sword. A +1 ginormous bastard sword. Okay. That's an interesting weapon. It looks like it's probably something the game expects you to stick with. Given that it's a free magical weapon, certainly not going to be getting rid of that anytime soon. So, it's a slashing weapon. We want to give her something that can do bludgeoning damage as well. At this point, we're down to clubs, so sure, let's give her a club. We could even be cheeky and give her 2 clubs. She could fight with one in each hand. No, that's silly. Alright, so that's the weapons examined and distributed according to who needs what and who can best use what. And we've done the same with the armour already. Looks like... oh, braces of armour +1. Oh, they were from the assassin leader, that's right. So, these aren't really useful for any of our current characters. If you remember one of the earlier playthrough videos, I was talking about how different types of bonus interact. In particular, saying that bonuses of the same type don't stack for the most part. So, armour bonus from magical braces of armour won't stack with an armour bonus from plain old armour. Meaning, putting these on a character, let's just show you that, they go on this slot, won't actually improve her armour class. So she's already got an armour bonus from the chain shirt, giving her an AC of 14. If we drop these, that doesn't change. Our +1 bonus from the braces of armour doesn't stack with the +4 armour bonus from the chain shirt, so they're not doing any good. That's not to say we couldn't eventually find a use for them, so a character that doesn't wear armor, for instance, would be glad to have these. But we don't have such a character yet, and we could probably use the money more than we can use the things themselves at this point. So, of the rest of this stuff, the Wand of Magic Missiles, yeah, again, maybe we want the money more than we want the ability to shoot one magic missile around. Shooting one magic missile is just not all that effective, to be honest, and we might be able to use that money for something better. So let's plan to sell that too. Alright, I think we've picked over our loot sufficiently. Let's jump back into the trading screen by talking to Oleg and start selling some of it. Now, how easy to use is this? We can click one by one. Can we select multiple? Can we click and drag? No. Oh, okay. So they don't stack, and you can't select more than one at once, at least that I can tell. So this is tedious. Alright, so be it. This is a rather tedious interface. What this immediately suggests to me is that picking up lots of things that are worth very little gold is going to be more hassle than it's worth. So looting every suit of leather or padded armor that we come across for its one gold piece value is just not going to be worth it, I think, given that it's going to involve so much tedious clicking through of this inventory screen. So if these stacked, it would be a different story. If we had a single item that said padded armor 15 or whatever that was, and we could pick them all up at once and put them in the selling menu, that would be better. As it stands, this is just a chore, and it's not a chore that pays off at all commensurate with its annoyingness, so we are going to be a bit more discerning in our looting from now on. Right, so we're selling knickknacks. We won't sell our cooking ingredients. So those stack. Look, things stack. It's just they can't stack armor or weapons, apparently. Okay, that's just weird. I don't understand. Alright, so we're selling off some of the Lady Jamandi Aldori's secret cache here. Apparently we're okay with that. And yeah, let's get rid of these as well. Ooh, that's a nice little bump up in the amount of money we're getting. Those are the thylacine pelts that Amiri skinned off of our deceased Tasmanian tiger random encounter. So let's sell those. And what's left? A couple of books. Is there anything we can do with that book? Info? Does this add a recipe maybe to our options when we're camping? I don't know. That would be cool if it did. I can't see any way to maybe if we activate it outside of the inventory, the vendor screen, it will do that. Let's hang on to it for now. And, we're going to sell this as well. Alright, let's quickly sort those again. So we've still got some clubs that I didn't manage to sell apparently. Yep, alright, let's sell that. So we get just over 500 gold pieces for all of our loot to date. Deal. Is there anything we want to buy? I sort of think not. I think weapon-wise, armor-wise, certainly we don't want to spend nearly half of our money on a single masterwork weapon at this point. So I think unless there's a tricky little thing down here that strikes our fancy, no, we'll just take the money and run. Alright, so we're no longer encumbered, I hope, and we're a little richer than we were, which will be handy.
It is done.
Let's see if we're moving around quicker. Yes, excellent. Okay, so we're still fatigued though. I wonder, can we rest before we have to deal with the next lot of bandits? So it doesn't look like it. What about talking to Svetlana? No, No option there. Can we just camp? No. You cannot rest here. Alright. Well, in that case, we're going to have to go into this next battle fatigued by the look of it, which is not great. So let's see what we can do to grab ourselves an advantage. If you remember back the last time, we were told there was some alchemist fire that Oleg's going to use to booby trap the gate, basically. We're going to talk to Bokken and we're going to look for some traps to set, so let's do those things. A frail, dishevelled old man wearing a stained and tattered robe gives you a gloomy look. I'm Bokken, local herbalist. What brings you here? Well, we don't actually get a chance to answer that question. Let's jump right to the point though. Okay, so he gives us a potion, which is nice, but we want more than that. Let's use our diplomacy skill to try to convince him to fight with us as well. Alright, there we go. So we've succeeded at a diplomacy check. DC 16, so it wasn't a trivial check. We did roll very well, and that's good. It looks like we've got Bokken firmly on our side. Alright, and Lindsay says, please be careful. Yes, good, we don't want to get him killed. Let's talk to him later. Okay, and now we were looking for traps, I think. So with Lindsay's trickery score, hopefully we're able to set those up effectively. Ah, there we go. Good steel traps in a box. Let's use them. Alright, so there was no need to make any sort of skill check to do that. Strikes me as weird. That seems like a natural place to integrate the trickery skill into the actual isometric top-down whatever portion of the game. But no, we just magically get to use the traps. Alright. Let's see if there's anything else we can do around here. I am lazily hitting the tab key to see if there's anything we've missed. Oh, there's a sack of potatoes. We don't need potatoes now. There are the traps that we've set. Alright, excellent. Let's set up.
No
So we're
stopping
expecting
now.
our bandit enemies to come through this gate. So let's set up where hopefully they'll run straight at us.
I am yours to command.
Let's make sure everyone's using the weapon we want them to
Give
use.
the order.
So that's true for Joseph. That's now true for Valerie as well. We want
Done
her using
waiting.
her bow if she's using a weapon at all. And we want her using her ginormous bastard sword as well. Good. So I think at this point I will save.
A rest is in order.
Good. Well, mate, we can't rest yet.
I
There's
wrote it like I
bandits to
saw
deal
it.
with. And let's see if we can beat back this retaliation from the bandits. Alright, let's see if we can learn a bit more about what we might be facing. Okay. So here's just some background on the problem. So the Stag Lord's collecting taxes, using his bandit cronies to shake down honest innkeepers like our mate Oleg here. Yeah, and they're killing people that don't cough up. So that sounds terrible, and we should stop it. Alright. We can ask them about themselves later. For now, let's... Yes, Valerie. Let's stand between these innocents and the bandit scum. That's what we're here for. Amiri was bored with all that talking. Of course she was. Let's start rolling some dice for hit and damage, shall we? Okay, Lindsay, that's a slightly downer thing to say, but sure. Nope, we are not easily cowed. And careful isn't really in our vocabulary, but thanks for the thought. Let's see what happens next. Whoa! Awesome! So, that looks like our preparation paid off quite nicely. We had Alchemist's Fire set off by Oleg, as promised. That's now taken quite a chunk out of a lot of the bandits that raced through the gate. We are not going to go anywhere for the time being, because remember the plan was to let them run into those traps. So let's make sure no one's going to break ranks and that everyone's safe for now, and hopefully the traps can do the next bit of the damage. Oh, nice. Oh, so Oleg's now in imminent danger from that bandit. At this point, we want to use Lindsay's new spell. So she can cast Grease here. Let's cast it so that it'll just catch that archer in its area of effect, and where it will hopefully catch the two bandits still outside the gate as they run through. So let's have her do that. Let's have Amiri run down and attack. Well, first of all, let's have her use her ability to rage, of course. And let's have her then run down and attack the bandit that's about to attack Oleg. Let's have Valerie and Joseph, when they can, move down to here to be in position to intercept any bandits coming up to attack Bokken. Alright, so Oleg just died. That's bad. Alright, that's terrible. Sorry, Oleg. Sorry, Svetlana. Yeah. Have to see how dead he really is at the end of combat. I have a tendency to pop back up when that happens to me, but let's see if it works for NPCs too. For now, let's focus on taking out the rest of them. So,
This won't kill me.
it looks like Amiri just got hurt quite badly, and it's time for
We can do it!
these two to get involved.
Let
It
us
looks like
strike as
they're not going
one.
to come to us through these traps. So let's have Lindsay now try to daze this archer at the back. Hopefully she won't run into a trap. Let's keep an eye on that. And let's have Amiri. So I think you can go into inventory without unpausing combat, which is not a great immersion feature, I don't think, but it certainly makes it easier to do things like drop a potion on your belt and take that potion. So there we go. Looks like Amiri's going to stay up for a little while longer at least. Let's see. That's enough. Alright, so there we go. That was good. Amiri took a swig of potion, kept herself up. Our other two ran in, finished off that bandit. Daze landed on this archer at the back. So now let's have these three characters. Ooh, let's not run them through the grease. That would be embarrassing. Let's have them all use the lovely ranged weapons that I gave them just earlier to attack from here rather than running through the grease spell. Alright, now that they're all using their ranged weapons, let's have them attack the dazed haps. Let's have Lindsay cast Daze again to try and keep him locked down. And so there's one more archer back there that we won't worry about for now. So he made his save that time.
I always survive.
Oh, so Amiri's just gone down. That's not great. Oh, I forgot to have Lindsay inspiring courage. That's a shame. Oh well. Let's press on. It looks like our grease spell has disappeared or not. Did it ever land? Now I'm so confused. I have to go back up through the combat log to see whether that grease spell ever actually went off. It looks like it didn't. Oh, okay. I'm now confused about why that didn't work. Huh, weird. Alright, that's weird and disappointing that I somehow flubbed using a spell. Maybe we can try it now. Let's cast Grease so it just catches the two of them. And then let's have Joseph and Valerie move in
We won't falter.
to attack
Do not falter!
this archer.
Axel, yes.
Oh, there we go. So Grease went off, and now we can have Lindsay. Let's have her inspire courage to get that bonus. Let's have these two continue to fight. There we go. Excellent. Starting to lay some hurt on him, and he's down. There we go. Oh, and Grease has made this bandit fall over. That's lovely. That's good. Alright, so let's now swap back to our ranged weapons so we don't have to run across the grease. And we'll have Joseph and Valerie both attack there. And let's have Lindsay try to daze. Alright. Yep. Excellent. So we've hit him, we've killed him, and it looks like we've won. Fantastic. Alright. So Amiri went down, but she didn't die, so she's popped back up, as the game does. If you're just unconscious but not dead, you come back with 1, or in this case 2 hit points. And Oleg is also, thankfully, not dead. So he got shot. Ah! Okay. Whew! So we didn't just set off that trap by running over it. That's nice. Okay, so Oleg's not actually dead. He's back on his feet after combat's finished. Alright, let's loot. Now, as I said before, I'm not going to take every 1 or 2 gold piece thing, because clicking through that vendor screen is just simply not fun and more trouble than it's worth. Composite longbow is worth 100 gold though. I will definitely take those. And magical cloaks, I will take those as well. So that's some nice loot there. What we can do is swap out the plain longbows for the composite longbows for those of our characters that don't have them. Oh, Valerie is using a measly short bow, so now she's using a much nicer composite longbow. Excellent. And I wonder whether we can identify this with our bard. So, now whether that would have happened with a different character if we'd right-clicked for info or not, I don't know. But we've identified this as a Cloak of Resistance +1, which improves all of our saving throws by 1. Now, my preference for these sorts of items is to sort of stack them on one character to the extent that that's possible, and end up with a character that can tank saving throws. So, heavily armoured and shielded characters like Valerie kind of tank melee. They stand in the way of melee attackers, and with their high armour class, they try to, hold those kinds of foes at bay without taking damage. If you have a character who's got saving throws, you can kind of use them in a similar way against effects. So if you know you're going to be, facing a spellcaster that's going to cast spells that need fortitude saves for some reason, or if you know that they're going to cast will save spells or something like that. If you've got a character who has a good wisdom, who has a good base will save, who has a nice feature like Divine Grace that lets you add your charisma to your saves, and who has your saving throw improving items kind of all stacked on that one character, then you've got a character who can kind of tank those effects better than anyone else at least. So we're going to give, even though Joseph has got good saving throws already, rather than bolster up the weak saving throw character, we're going to further improve the good saving throws of this character so that he can hopefully bear the brunt of certain kinds of attacks without suffering their full ill effects, and that'll be a good thing. So there we go, long-winded explanation of why we're putting the saving throw improving item on the character who already has good saving throws, rather than using it on a character with weaker saving throws. Okay, excellent. So we've beaten the bandits. It wasn't a particularly elegant victory, I'll admit, but we'll take it nonetheless. That bandit back there probably has another one of those nice composite longbows. So let's grab it. Indeed he does, and we have. So I'm not running over the grease effect, by the way, because I don't want to embarrass myself by falling over in my own grease puddle. And now let's talk to Oleg. Hopefully we can sell those few nice bits and pieces we picked up and get some rest at last. Alright, Oleg's happy that we've helped him fight off those bandits. Excellent. Now they'll know better than to treat honest people like cattle. Yes, they will. Well, these ones won't, but maybe the others will. Yep, Bokken got involved. Those alchemist fires did at least as much damage to the bandits as they did to us. So that was good. Thank you, Bokken. Alright, and we get invited to use Oleg's accommodations. That's fantastic. We need a rest. We're fatigued. So we'll take him up on that one. We get some gold. Okay. And we're told not to offend him by turning it down. So whatever noble impulses our paladin might have had, he's going to press this 100 gold on us anyway, and we're okay with that. Alright, that's fantastic. Let's save at that point. And let's head on inside, where hopefully we can rest, and maybe call it a day for our adventurers and for this section of the playthrough. I'm interested to see what the resting mechanic's like at an inn. So the camping mechanic I thought was really cool. I thought having different roles to fill in the camp, and different characters can be sort of better or worse suited for those roles, and different roles give you different bonuses, so you've got to think about who goes where. That's a really cool mechanic rather than just clicking rest. So let's see if they've done anything similar with their, oh look, another sack of potatoes, with their resting at inns bit of the game. Okay, Svetlana says she's busy. Alright, we just want to rest anyway, so let's go upstairs to the second floor like suggested by Oleg, and hopefully we can rest. Okay, so we have a nice airy open inn room to call our own by the look of it. There are chests maybe for storing stuff. Oh, no. Someone left their potions and scrolls behind, along with their silver bling. That was absent-minded of them. Alright, so click a bed to sleep. Alright, fantastic. So at this point,
Adventures
what I
await.
might do, just in case the game doesn't do it automatically, is use Joseph's Lay on Hands ability to heal Amiri for a measly 1 hit point. So this is why Lay on Hands I think is not a sort of central selling point of the Paladin class. It's never going to be a huge amount of healing, 1d6 per 2 levels, especially not compared to the kind of items that you can eventually get, and especially the spells that clerics can cast. It's more a kind of keep you on your feet for one more round thing when you use it on yourself. But we might as well use it up on Amiri while we've got the opportunity. There we go, that was a bit of a better roll on that d6 than the first one. So we've given her some hit points back, and now None of our characters prepare spells, so there's no need to worry about picking spells for tomorrow. All we need to do, by the look of it, is hit this bed, and we should wake up rested. Ooh, no, or maybe we'll wake up in the middle of the night with the creepy cat still running around and have some kind of encounter. You wake up from a nasty dream that tortured you almost all night long. In it, you saw a wall of unnaturally thick fog that surrounded you, slowly moving closer and closer. A quick look out of the window, and you find out that the fog was not a figment of your imagination, not a dream. And then...
Hear me.
And then what?
Please hear me. Can you hear me? Please.
We encounter the ghostly apparition of a beautiful nymph, okay, who seems like she's in trouble and wants help. Okay, and let's ask who she
am I?
is.
Just a tear shed by the land itself. The bitter sigh of nature. I am a nymph, the guardian of this area. The defeated guardian. Call me the guardian of the bloom, if you wish.
Alright, so we can scroll in a bit and get a zoom up of our ghostly nymph. That seems like a kind of sleazy how you doing thing for a paladin to say, so we won't say that. Certainly we don't want to say that, I don't know why you would, so we will just continue to find out what is going on.
Salvation. We have a common enemy, and long have I searched for someone who can defeat him. The one you call the Stag Lord. As a storm strikes ruthlessly with gusts and lightning, the Stag Lord wreaks havoc with the swords of his servants. And not just in the world of people. The land also suffers from the evil he brings. My forests and my flowers suffocate in this fog. Soon even I will vanish, as the last ray of light fades at dusk.
Alright, the Stag Lord's not just a pain in Lady Jamaldi Aldori's butt, he's also a problem for this ghostly nymph. So, it's a bit of a dense question,
Yes.
but
It
let's ask it.
hides his fortress as well as his dark deeds. While responsible, he did not create this affliction. It is the work of a powerful druid who has betrayed even himself. I know not why the powers did not leave this renegade, but even I was unable to defeat him.
Alright, so we have a druid standing somehow in the background of what's going on, and the Stag Lord might not be our biggest problem by the sound of it.
This fog
Alright, how can we help?
shrouds, entangles, suffocates. If only I could learn how it was created. My powers wane. I have barely the strength to call out to you. All I know for certain is that somewhere in this forest lies an old house, and it echoes with the remnants of a strange power. The Stag Lord and his druid were there. The fog hides this place from me, but I can point you to the bandits' camp near the Thornford. Make them tell you where this place is. Go there and listen to the echo, catch the whispers, search for anything that can tell you how the fog was created. Once the fog clears, nature will breathe again, and you will be able to easily find your way to the fortress of our mutual enemy.
Alright. So what seemed like a straightforward go beat some bandits up mission has now got a mysterious and magical dimension to it. There's a druid, there's a fog, there's a nymph. Okay, cool. So let's tell her
I don't believe
we're on
in
it.
fate, stranger. But our meeting seems more than a coincidence.
Alright, I just hope we got some rest in amongst all of this. Like, is that Valerie seems to be doing? Sleeping really creepily, fully dressed on top of the quilt? Okay. Alright, excellent. So, we've got a new objective after our mysterious, ghostly nighttime encounter with the nymph. Okay, this is a safe location, so here we can do all sorts of housekeeping type stuff. And great. Let's head downstairs, find the rest of our party. Alright, there we have Lindsay. There we have someone who's not one of our party. Interesting. And there we have Svetlana. Alright, so having defeated the bandits, having had our mysterious nighttime encounter with the ghostly apparition of a nymph, and having learned about a bigger threat than just a bandit lord, namely some weird, evil, maybe druid creating a magical fog that's tainting the land, having got through all of that, I think I will leave it here for this bit of the playthrough and come back next time to regroup with Lindsay and our other companions, and then set out to find the stag lord, find some druid guy, sort out this fog. Okay, all sorts of things that need attention. But we'll do that next time. See you then.